Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cactus Patch. I am your host, Glitch Cactus, but you can call me Cactus. Firstly, apologize for the later start today. Some stuff did come up, but we are here. We are ready for episode 8, another episode based on the weapon and special limitations. And joining me for this fantastic, exciting, and knowledge-packed episode is the one and only Magic 8 Ball. How are you doing, Magic?
I've been pretty all right. Just chilling today. Got some. Been busy, but overall, can't complain.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if you can't complain, those are the best kind of days.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you give a little bit about you, what you do, who you are, who is the Magic 8 Ball?
Now we could get very profound on this already right away if we really wanted to, and then we could go into very very deep conversations about who is the man behind the magic.
I love that. I love that so
But
much.
um, I generally do a lot, and that's kind of my whole thing. I've done commentary, I've done TOing, I've done coaching, I've done playing, I've done content creation. I tried to do even like video editing for a little bit, but like I don't know about all that.
Felt.
Yeah, no. Anything Splatoon related that can be pursued, I have pursued.
That's awesome. And I think you're going to LTC soon. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm running it.
Yes, sir. That's right. For those who don't know, Magic helps run so many amazing LAN events, as well as even helps on online tournament events there. So if you're going to Low Tide City, say hi to Magic. Magic's gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna get a picture with you, Magic. I still gotta give you that
All right,
hug.
but yes,
Told
yeah.
you. Frame one, I see you at Low Tide City. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh,
It's gonna
are
be
you
fun.
excited for it?
Ah, dude, it doesn't feel real yet. I can't believe it's literally next weekend.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like it's been hitting me like a truck, and just because I've been focused on like 500 other things, uh, and also since I've done this enough times at this point, like it's just not even phasing me.
Yeah, it's just like, yep, nope, another land under the belt. You know how it goes.
Mhm.
That's awesome, though. What are you excited? This is gonna be like off topic for the episode, but what are you most excited for Low Tide City?
Honestly, there's a lot that's shifting right now with
Hmm.
lands, and I'm excited to see how this one happening will bubble outwards, right? Like there's this is the largest western land, and we've beaten Breeze, and nobody can even tell me that now. Nobody can be like, oh, Breeze is bigger. No, none of that. It wasn't even bigger than Riptide last year. Um it's really just one of those things that it's so big, and it seems like things are only going to keep getting bigger, that we're finally starting to reach the point where it's like, wait a minute, there's actually things that are there's actually significant amount of interest and I hate to say it, but money being put into things right now
Hmm.
that are pushing this towards like more of a proper esport, which can be good and bad, which has its positives and negatives, right?
Yeah, of course.
But commentators are getting paid this time.
Ooh, shout out commentators.
Shout outs to the commentators. But yeah, but this time we didn't have open commentary applications. Like,
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, because like you said, the commentators are getting paid this time around versus like they never really have before.
yeah,
So I mean, I could totally see how it'd be like what you guys. I think it was like said it's like an invite kind of only, or like they asked certain commentators.
yeah, no, it was invite only, right? And this is how
Hmm.
Smash does it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is
of course.
they've got a list
Yeah,
of people, and they go and ask them, right? And
exactly.
even on like the back end of that, right? That's shifting too, because you normally it was the TOs who handle the commentary stuff, but started at Genesis, we actually just had level 1 take care of that instead of it being focused on the TOs, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, reality, that's it's kind of outside of us, right? Like level 1 knows what they're doing. They have enough people that are involved with Splatoon at least tangentially to understand like, hey, this is a good commentator, this isn't. And even then, like there could be someone that they know that wants to do Splatoon that's actually still really good and can, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I get
and
it.
that's part of that shift, right?
Yep, exactly.
I think the other thing too is that I mean, we have two really good solid brand name teams that are coming to this event in
Yes.
Moonlight and Starburst. You've got Mickey Mart, who is also like relevant, especially after Genesis,
Yep.
and you've got Prickly Pear Limeade, which is going to be a baller roster that could probably go like very very deep. Um, and obviously I'm not biased, of course, but
Yeah.
like just so many strong players are attending this LAN,
Yeah.
right? Like in comparison to Genesis, and this is not to knock down any of what happened to Genesis because that was a fantastic tournament. It was a great breakout performance for those players, but I mean, this is a stacked event.
Yeah.
This is stacked, and really that kind of like level of like up there competition. I mean, it was there at Riptide, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But now it's becoming more standard that like twice a year, low tide and riptide, there is going to be solid competition and there's going to be a decent amount of cash on the line.
Mm-hmm.
We have 340 entrants. First place is walking out of there with $3,000
Oh my
probably.
god.
Yeah.
That's insane to think about. That's
That's
It's a
insane.
nice paycheck to the bank for a Splatoon event. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So just all of this stuff is kind of pushing us to this as I called it a critical mass.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had Siren and I had who was the other organizer. We had a conversation with the head organizer of Low Tide City, Trey, and we had a good conversation with him where he like broke down a lot of what these numbers look like for how much it costs us to run and rent all this equipment and rent the production crew that is level 1 and what what else goes on inside of it, right? Like how much does it cost to rent the venue and everything. So I think eventually what we're going to see is that we're gonna start being too big for these Smash events,
Wow, that's a crazy thought. I
right?
Yeah.
Right? But not that it's how do I want to say this? It's not that we're gonna be too big for these Smash events,
The
but we're
venues aren't
getting
big
to
enough
the
for it.
point. Yeah, like we're gonna need our own space if we
Yeah.
want to do like these massive events that are focused on us that we can customize to what we like, right? Because there are a lot of
Yeah.
restrictions right now in terms of lands, in terms of scheduling, in terms of our control over the event that we don't exactly have. And I think that that's the next step that we're moving towards. And if that starts happening and those start doing well, like that's going to be a massive shift and a massive boost to Splatoon in general, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the World Championships happening, period, has already given so many people. I mean, thank goodness Jackpot won, right? But it's given so many people the opportunity to do so much more, right?
Yeah.
Madness is partner now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thank
He got
goodness.
I think yesterday, finally after being called 13.
Yeah. So funny.
Oh,
So funny.
catch a break twice, by the way. Twice, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure. It's called it's under 13, even though provided valid information, they are clearly not. So, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's giving Splatoon is giving these individuals the platforms they deserve and have been grinding for. I mean, even after like
mm-hmm.
Worlds finished up, they each went on Twitter saying, they reached the ultimate goal, and that's to become a world champion. And now that they have that title, they can start pursuing different things. I think it was Jared and Madness that wanted to start pursuing content creation. I
Mm-hmm.
believe Leafy and Q are just taking a break to focus on other things. I think Valorant was mentioned in there somewhere.
Yeah, like Madness is streaming Valorant right now,
Yeah.
which is very funny.
So
Uh,
yeah, I mean it's
but
incredible.
like especially with Kyo getting as big as he's gotten, especially with
Yes.
Sendao giving us the infrastructure I think that we needed desperately for a long time to really make sure. Sorry, my dryer's
It's
going off.
okay. It's a banger tone, so it's okay.
Thank you. Uh, the infrastructure that we need to like really cultivate our own community that's separate from just these in-game constraints that we have, and just there's so much going for the scene right now because of the platform that we have with Madness, Kyo, Jared, Chara. Um, oh my God, who am I thinking of? But I mean, just IPL and Dapple in general, right? Like there are
Yes.
so many people that have a good reach. Dude, right? Like these are people that, because when you look at like CS:GO,
Hmm.
right? The reason that it got so big over such a long period of time is because there were so many people that were involved and then backed out, but were always like tangentially interested in it, right? Even
Yes.
if they weren't competing, even if they weren't, right? But we haven't had the time to really build that kind of thing up. And now we have that with a number of content creators that are tangentially, at least looking back in on competitive
Yeah.
and kind of like at least directing the attention there when talking about the game, right? And
Yeah.
that's that kind of natural growth that's so key for esports.
Yeah, and I think it helped a lot. I know it was mentioned, I think Popkin mentioned it on a previous episode of the podcast covering Worlds. Like when you look at that stream and when like it was Kaiser versus Jackpot, the cameras that went over to Madness every time he got up to
Oh
throw
my
some
God.
words back, like they didn't shy away from showing that. They wanted players to see that this game can get this serious, but in a fun way. Because all the players, regardless, are smiling. They're having a good time. They're fighting
Yeah.
for a championship title, which again you see it in all type of competitive events. I mean, you see that in Rocket League. We see it in CS:GO. We see it in Smash Bros all the time. Players jumping out of their seat, looking over. Just, I mean, I think it was at Genesis for the Ultimate finals. What was that player's name? The one who's, I know he's not signed to anyone, but started beating out all these players who are signed to teams, just throwing up their like the game signs for, like, I know FaZe, Liquid, just
Oh yeah.
yeah. I'm not seeing those highlights on Twitter, but it's great to see Nintendo kind of taking a bit of that opportunity to shine the competitiveness that players can have with each other. And I feel like that also helped boost, like, a lot of people being like, wow, like I didn't think Splatoon was like that. I thought Splatoon was like this little kids game where little kids like paint over turf and shoot each other with ink. It's like, no, like yes, but also no. Because
Yeah. I
players
didn't
get the
even
chance to do this.
I didn't even think about that, but like you're right. The fact that we even got a lot of those camera angles and moments with Madness that were like clippable and put
Yeah.
into like several gifs,
What's this guy
like
yapping about?
that's the kind of thing that we need, right? Like
Yes.
we need that to happen more often. We need that. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Splatoon needs worlds if it wants to like grow at all and function,
Yeah.
right? Like there's just no way around it. So, I mean, because we can do stuff like that because it gets passed around and memeified and sensationalized, I
Yeah.
guess.
No, 100%. I mean, I remember seeing people that there was some user that doesn't even know Splatoon and used the Madness Yapper gif and was like, "Who is this guy and what's he yapping about?" And it
What
just
is blood? Yeah.
yeah, it was just the explanation to tweet. Oh yeah, Splatoon World Championship, and it's like, what? It's like people even don't even realize games like this have a World Championship like that, and it's incredible. It's amazing to see that, the viewership that showed out for the World Championship, and even following suit, all these so many tournaments. I mean, I no, this is not to self brag, but like I love seeing it every time. I still to this day get comments and questions on my guide to competitive Splatoon video I put out like over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to me, knowing that there's players out there that every day are looking this up and still trying to get into this game competitively and ask questions in hopes to find their own team. A question I got last week was a player wondering if there are teams out there where they're okay with players not talking over VC. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I love being able to give that player like the knowledge for it, but it goes to show that players want to get into competitive any way they can with any limitations that they might have. And that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. That video I put out, that legendary Splatoon moments video. I mean, it has 50,000 views.
Oh my god.
You think about it,
That's
right? Isn't that
insane.
crazy? That's crazy of me.
And Chara's one of his Chara's older videos, he recently got 1 million views. To think a Splatoon
Really?
video recently hit 1 million views about, I think it was like the special combinations, like worst and best specials, I think it was. Like there are players out there that probably don't even know competitive Splatoon and probably saw that video or are like, oh, that makes sense from a competitive standpoint because Chara likes to kind of toss in the casual versus competitive side for a lot of videos, which is great
Mhm.
because it introduces that. Chara and like even Squid School are great bridges into casual and competitive, and seeing that really allows just people's eyes to widen up a little bit the potential that a game like this can have, and we're constantly seeing these numbers rise.
And that brings me to a point that I really want to make, and I think is going to be pertinent to the rest of this discussion. Actually, is Splatoon. As long as these players keep playing, as long as they're constantly talking about it and at least tangentially involved, and they're still interested, Splatoon is going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
We've got such a devoted fan base. We've got so much room to grow, and the people are passionate enough that are working at this right now, as well as like just how many good things we've got going for us. Splatoon is going to be fine as long as the players keep playing,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, players are half of the battle that makes this happen. The other half, of course, being our TOs. Without TOs, we wouldn't have our weeklies, our monthlies, the, once a years of like the Ink TVs and Ludi seasons. We
Mm-hmm.
without both sides, it wouldn't come to be. But, players help push it out. Players help try to grab their friends into these games that might be interested in other competitive games or just want a taste of competitive. I mean, we see that with the tournament that Off the Dial runs. It's dangerous to go alone. That combines different levels of players into one team. Those that are really experienced and those that have no idea what a good kit looks
Right.
like. So
uh,
it's amazing to see just those worlds clash and share that spread, and I love it. I love seeing it. I love the direction we're going into, and it's just gonna get bigger from here.
100%. And that's, to me, that's why special limitations and weapon limitations are at the very least important to discuss. And that's why I want to, that's going to be my segue.
I was like, that's a solid segue there. I give you props to that one. Yes. So the main purpose of this episode, right? This episode we have for the podcast is to talk over the weapon limitations and special limitations for tournaments. So the first question I had was just limitations to tournaments, like as a whole. How do you feel
Mhm.
about them?
Just like, in
Like
what context?
so
Like,
like them happening, like that, like us finally putting them into place or trying to, like, do you feel like it's a good thing, it's needed, it's something that should have been done, like just how do you feel about knowing that there's limitations finally being put into place or attempting to be?
I have been saying that something like this needs to happen for a long, long, long time, right?
Yeah.
Just, just so many reasons, and I'm very glad that it's fine at least being talked about in a way that's not just dismissive,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's being talked about in a way that's not just, oh well, maybe one day, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe in the long run, or always along those lines, right? Now it's being, at the very least, we're sitting down, we're having these conversations, and people are taking them seriously, right?
Yep.
And as much as we want to talk about screen, right? Like,
Yep.
and how much of a disaster that whole fiasco was,
Yeah.
it did prepare us to have that conversation, to have all of these conversations,
Yeah.
which again, that was, and that's a completely separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, people understand, like, we can modify our rule set. Like this is a thing that we can do that can be widely adopted by the community, and that's okay. It's not gonna ruin the game. It's not gonna ruin people's chances. It's not gonna ruin Jackpot's chances at winning the world championship,
Yeah.
which was a point that I got so many times about screen and deviating away from Nintendo's rule sets. Like that's what are we talking about here? This is
Yeah.
about players.
Yes. Yep. It's about the players that play in these tournaments and practice for them every single waking moment they have throughout the day. The players that play in the SOSs, the Triton Cups, the Proving Grounds, the Low Winks, like these are the limitations we have for tournaments that are played in all the time, not the once a year, if we're lucky, qualifiers that mainly turf war for the first day, that any team can get the top 8 or top 16. I can vouch. I was back when I was a Div 8, just randomly got into the top 16 for a Nintendo qualifier. Because I just was good at turf war. Like anyone, it can happen. And, so what if you can't use screen, or let's say, or, or double Zuka in a random tournament that is run by IPL or Dapple. If you want to run it in a Nintendo tournament, fine, sure. Like, no one's going to stop you. But at the end of the day, we have to think about what's not only enjoyable for the players playing, but also the players watching and the commentators talking about the games. I've seen it time and time again when I would even commentate tournaments, just the almost boredom of seeing the same comps over and over and over again. There's only so many times you can appreciate a good long range pencil shot or a 360 Zuka shot across the map.
Now, I think there's an important distinction to make, and this is something I wanted to go into when we talked about the different tournaments that happened. It's not that a new meta won't develop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In fact, by restricting things, you actually probably end up specifically creating a more easily definable meta. That's not the problem here. And I think that that's the difference between the Kyo and Chara events and what happened in Proving Grounds. Because for context, I did watch some of Kyo's tournament. I did watch some of Chara's tournament, and I did watch some of Proving Grounds.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell that Chara's tournament, Kyo's tournament were about preference. Were about, like you said, not seeing things become stale.
Yeah.
Rather than doing things so that even when a meta develops, players can still, at the very least, feel like they're not bashing their head against the wall, feel like they're not deviating from the principles of competition within the game, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really what was encapsulated by the crack and cheese. What's encapsulated by Zuka, right? Specifically double Zuka.
Yeah.
It starts to feel like you're playing for a certain win button rather than taking all of the information in and coming up with a way to provide answers to what the opponent is throwing at you. And I think that that's an important distinction to make when we talk about weapon restriction, weapon bans. It's not that players are bored, right? Like that should never be the reason for a ban.
Yeah.
It should always be because players are legitimately feeling like the competitions are getting constricted in some way that is genuinely problematic for the health of the game, for playing the game competitively, right? Because, like, think about what happens when someone pops a Zuka.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to literally sit there behind cover for, what are we talking about, like 7-8 seconds?
Yeah, roughly. If they don't pop them all immediately, you're looking, 7-8 seconds for all 3 shots to hopefully not hit you in your direction, and just trying to find out even where it's coming from, because I won't lie, that little sound bit you get does not always help you out.
No. And and so then it's like, all right, yeah, if like I get touch of death here,
Hmm.
right? Like that's an issue. Like whatever, we can deal with it. I'm gonna have to sit behind cover for 7 seconds,
Yeah.
and then we can go back at them. When that gets pushed to 15 because you chain another one right afterwards,
Yeah.
or even just like a 10 seconds where it's coming at you from two different angles, and now your cover is constricted to like one very small area, and the enemy team can all of a sudden just immediately collapse around you. That's a problem, especially when if you step anywhere outside of that zone, you have the potential to get literally touch of death with very little reaction time. That's an issue, right?
Yeah.
Like
No, 100%.
people are comparing Zuka to back way back in Splatoon 2 during the early like broken Stingray meta.
Hmm.
Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
You're sitting behind a wall, and all of a sudden, this giant death laser that can go anywhere on the map is pinging you for like, I think it was like 8 damage a frame or something.
Oh, thank
And it's
God.
like, what do you do? But
Yeah.
even then, you could at least like dodge. You could at least pop armor. You could do something,
You had
right?
counters. You had counters.
You had at least something to do. And eventually, yeah, they nerfed it in a way that made it at least not ridiculous, so that you can't just sit behind the spawn barrier and shoot it from there, because people were literally just running double stingray, popping it from the spawn barrier and like death raying it. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And people are comparing the feeling they had during that meta to the feeling they have during this one. And that's such an issue. Like that's such a huge issue, right?
Yeah. It's
That's not
it's it's a
that's
problem.
not okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the fact that we were reaching that point where, I mean, I don't think I could go on social, like obviously that when I say social media, it's mainly Twitter, without seeing somebody that's, high mid-level to upwards of the top level, having an issue with the current state of the meta. And, you can only hope for the Nintendo to do something for so long before it is time to take it into our own hands. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what slowly started happening. Now, obviously, Chara's event and Kyo's event were both, you know, testing the waters in a sense from
Mm-hmm.
two players that practically know the game inside and out, every weapon inside and out, and also had a good cause and a fun time behind both of them. And I remember watching majority of both of those events, and to see the chat's reactions to like any weapon you can think of being pulled out, to see the commentators even. I mean, of course, Kyo's was just Kyo, shouting a lot, but it's just there was actual enjoyment and question behind a lot of decisions made, and that's what we haven't had in so long because of the current state of the meta. There was no need for, oh, there's the cooler, there's a Zuka pop. Don't worry, they might have died using it, but they're back and they have it 90% charged still. It's like, no, now it's like you get punished if you, for once, actually don't have a cooler. Or if you do, you're putting it on a weapon that might not get cooler quick enough. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no Zuka spam to have to hide for those 15 seconds, giving up practically the entire map to the enemy team.
It's a thing too where like I doubt most of the players who are spamming Zukas are enjoying it.
Yeah,
Right?
no.
Like
Yeah.
does it feel nice when you get a double kill on Zuka when like you shouldn't have? But like most of the people's reaction is often just going like is like a laughter. It's like a chuckle, and it's like I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah,
Because it shouldn't. Because
exactly.
everyone knows, including the player that popped that special, that in that situation, that outcome shouldn't have occurred.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's if that's the reaction that players are having to popping the special, to using it, then how can it feel good to people on the other side? Like it's it's not fun. It's not fun for anyone involved, and it's breaking the principles of the game because their concept of risk and reward is so much more volatile. Is so much it gives them so much more room to breathe. Like it turns the game on its head.
Yeah. And that's something we haven't had. You mentioned it before that using something like double Zuka, it wasn't a plan, right? It was, if anything, using double Zuka cooler was pretty much the staples. That was easy button to win any game you wanted.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to put two and two together to make that comp work. It's literally cooler up, special spam your Zukas, and you're most likely going to win 90% of your games because that's just how it was. What team is the better special spammer in that situation? And now, taking kind of points away from the first, Charo's event and Kyo's event into Proving Grounds, we saw what that was like. We saw what players actually had to think with their comps. Think of counters after each round they went through against another team, and no longer almost read their minds, know what they're gonna play because we don't have that option anymore.
Like as someone who has genuinely watched, played, commentated the game for 7 years at this point, that looked like the Splatoon that I know. Right?
Yeah,
And it's I've dealt with some crazy metas at the end of the day. I like legitimately. I've played through the best and worst of it. It looks so much better with the Proving Grounds rule set. I mean, just from the little bit that I watched,
yeah,
that looks like these players are having those mental back and forths that happen in a Splatoon match, rather than what we see when we have people just spamming cooler, popping double Zuka, and mashing their faces in. Right? It feels like it's better just to watch, even just to watch. And I'm very curious to see what kind of feedback Popgun and the rest of the team at Proving Grounds got on the rule set changes, because I mean that is going to determine it.
yeah.
It's
And
like
I know that Steel Guild put out the form for players to vote into it, and considering that Proving Grounds tested out the waters with these limitations, right? I like to think that this was the first official production tournament to put something like this into place, right? It wasn't
mhm.
a tournament that a top teammate or a lower level player that put together with some other friend to run, and it succeeded. I mean, I remember just reading throughout the chat and engaging with the chat, the enjoyment and the being able to watch what we were watching and have a good time seeing what we were seeing and not thinking, oh, there's a Zuka, you heard it. Oh, there's a Zuka flying across the map. Oh, the Zuka took out the inkjet. Are we surprised? Like it was incredible. It was like a breath of fresh air.
Mhm. Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's not like we can't prevent something like this from happening again. Right?
Yeah.
We can let's talk about the elephant in the room. Obviously, is that, oh well, the patch came out and everything is changing now. Okay, and right, like
Yeah, no,
how
exactly.
are we going to look to the future and say, well, first of all, how can we just convincingly say that things have changed for the better now?
Hmm.
First of all, right? Because I mean, just for an example, the end game of Splatoon 2's meta, I mean, people were worried about double K-Gal for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Riptide 2021 happens. Things change for like 2 months, where all of a sudden we're in the best meta of our lives. And then we get to double missile. And people are shitting on the game for the rest of its existence.
Yeah.
It's not like the fact that this, I mean, I'm gonna call it a limp patch. Thank goodness the Kraken bug got fixed, right? Like
Yeah. No more
that
crack and
never should have been in the
cheese.
game to exist in the
Yeah.
first place. I think they shouldn't have even brought back Kraken. That's a whole other conversation. But
The
legitimately,
yeah.
just because this patch came out and all of a sudden like things are slowly changing and there's experimentation happening, doesn't mean that if we look at Low Tide City in 2 weeks, in a week, and all of a sudden Starburst is running through the tournament with double Zuka cooler again, like all I'm saying is that yes, things can be changing, but we won't know the full extent of it until we see another big tournament, and that's going to happen in a week, and then come talk to me. Because I guarantee you that we could probably see some interesting things, right? Like I'm sure Jared's going to be playing dualies at the very least, but
Yes. Yeah.
and Moonlight has been working with, from what I hear from Scrimbucks, an interesting V roller comp. But that doesn't mean that this whole double Zuka thing is going away, right? Like yes, teams can be experimenting with things, but at the end of the day, people are going to find something that's potentially even worse.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it just takes time to find that. I mean, thanks to Jackpot in coming back from Worlds, we found out that Japan's Splatoon runs double screen
Yeah.
because of one, you can't completely see through it, and two, the damage it does to you now after the recent patch doing going from 30 to 40 is way much more
Yeah, it's
convincing to do
significant.
things. Yeah, yeah. In a way now it's like, hey, sometimes you are gonna see. I've been seeing Zero practice for LTC, and they're running the 52 deco with screen
Yeah,
because it's good.
52 Deco is going to be really, really strong
Yeah,
at the end of the day. After this buff, like, and now that people know how to use screen,
yeah.
it's really strong. I've been seeing some. I coach Drexel,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing the impact that it has is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and at some point, obviously no time soon, but the hope is eventually we'll have that the last fixes that maybe are happening for players for screen that
Mm.
will make it in a sense a little more viable. Because at the end of the day, I feel like players aren't using it for what it does to somebody when they go through it. It's the advantage it gives you of just being there, right? It's like whale when you're using whale to fight with. Yeah, it's like it's there, and sure you can get hit by it here and there, but you can still dodge it for the most part. But it's knowing it's there and it could do something to you that makes players want to jump out,
I
not
mean, it's
go
a
towards it.
great displacement tool, and it's a great anti-range tool.
Yeah,
And you'll see it get popped against specifically Pencil a lot, and it actually can do like a significant cause a significant amount of problems for Pencil, which is fascinating when you think about it. Like all of a sudden the anti Pencil answer was in front of us the whole time. Um, I don't know. I still think even if teams aren't running double Zuka anymore, it doesn't matter to me.
hmm
The fact of the matter is that there's still a chance that something like that could happen, and if we if we seriously want this game to be good in the long run, we have to implement a no dupes rule.
yeah.
Like that is just my stance always, period, is that we shouldn't be allowed to double up.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with that. And you can only wait so long for, the hope that, oh, Nintendo's gonna fix it. Just trust me, guys. Like, no, we didn't even know they were ever gonna fix Kraken cheese, and they actually did. But how long did we have to wait for that to happen before we start implementing bans in certain events? I know there was at least three different tournaments that ran no Kraken cheese or no Kraken on Clan Blitz before finally something happened by Nintendo to take rid of that opportunity that for it to be
Yeah.
used like that. And it's like we had to start moving in that direction because Nintendo wasn't taking over. And sometimes that happens. And yeah, at the end of the day, you have to remember like competitive Splatoon's the 1% of Splatoon. The other 99% are the casuals who are playing, you know, in turf war most of the time or just picking up the game for an hour a day to play in a ranked mode. They're not thinking about what's going to be the most competitively viable.
Right. Hmm. And yeah, like that's why I'm so convinced that that has to be the case, right? Is
Yeah.
because we we don't know how the last patch is going to look.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
And if we aren't willing and ready to have these conversations of like, okay, well, we've seen double crab do awful things to the meta. We've seen double machine do awful things to the meta. We've seen double shot do awful things to the meta. Why can't we take all of these data points that we've seen, even extending it into Splatoon 2, and take all the data points and say, okay, well, the worst metas that we've seen are specifically when we have double ups
Yeah.
of weapons, of specials. Why don't we just prevent that from happening? Right?
Yeah. No,
Like,
exactly.
is that seriously that hard to do? It's not going to constrict players' weapon pools because most of the time a dedicated shot player can just play shot, and the other shot player that isn't a dedicated shot will be fine switching off to something else like 99% of the time. And we could prevent literally every single awful meta that we've had in the flick of a switch if we just implement no dupes.
Yeah.
It's I don't understand why it's not that simple.
Yeah. Because I mean, it proved with Proving Grounds to be a fantastic, to my like eyes, a success.
Mm-hmm.
Without the double Zuka spam, it allowed for so much more to open up. And sure, it took us how many double up metas to get to it, but now that it actually is in place, it turns heads a little bit. It's like, no, wait a minute, I liked watching that. I actually liked playing that. I didn't get double Zuka 24/7. And then that brings the question, like, a lot of players will have, well, I wonder why we didn't do this with crab meta or the booyah meta when it was double crab, double machine.
Yeah.
And it's like that's something that, sure, those came and went. This is one of the longest stale metas we've had in a while for at least Splatoon 3's lifespan. Zuka's just been reigning king for so long, longer than the crab meta.
Yeah.
And that has to do with I know Gus made a fantastic video talking about it, where it's an endless like circle. You have Cooler, you have Zuka, you have I forget what the third one was. I think it was like the pencil shot, and then it was endless. You take care of one, it'll take care of the others. But if you don't take, you have to figure out which one you want to take care of. Ideally, it's like you take care of Cooler because that will stop most likely the spam of wanting to run double Zuka. But then there's also the fact that Zuka has insane hitboxes and insane damage possibilities. So then you also have to take care of that special as well. And it's just, that's too much to expect to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when seeing tournaments finally take place into putting these changes out there where it's like, all right, let's limit to one Zuka. At least you only have one special that can do insane damage to you from across the map to worry about. And it looked positively received.
And here's the thing, right? Is Nintendo, and because I'm going to talk about S2 bans, because I know you wanted to talk
Yes.
specifically about this. Nintendo has done this thing in the past two games where they have just, even the past three, where they've locked themselves into these insane design pitfalls with Tacticooler in this game, with Ink Armor in the last game, and then Bubbler and Kraken in the first game. Right? Where you have these specials that are just monsters to balance.
Yeah.
Because of the ways that they impact the game. Right? The Cooler is either going to be weak or strong. There is no in between. It is either you do not pick it or you pick it on every single map mode. You have to have this. It is your defensive bastion. If you do not have it, you are going to get run over. And they've done it with every single game so far, right? They did it with Armor. Because we've seen the same balancing issue with Armor, right? Because you talk about that circle of like, all right, well, you squash one bug, the other one starts popping up and starts tickling your toes. Like, they did it with Armor.
Yep.
Because when I saw that point on bans in Splatoon 2, I was like, well, you can't ban any of the specials, right? Like you could argue that you should just ban missiles, But then how are you going to break through a team's armor?
Mm-hmm.
You could ban armor, but then missiles are just going to be even worse than they already were, right? Like, you could ban bubble blower. I think that one would actually gain some traction. But like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where everything was so unbelievably strong. And everything was a nuke, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, every single special in that game was basically just a giant explosion, except for like Stingray, armor, and oh, there's one other special that I'm not thinking of. Point being, like everything was just a giant nuke. And so you had to have armor to survive anything and make progress.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the design hole that they found themselves in.
Yeah.
And now in this game, we stopped having armor and instead we have cooler, which is somehow even more frustrating because now consequences are just non-existent at all.
Yeah.
It's so obnoxious. But at the end of the day, it's like one of the only defensive options that you have against Zuka. And that's a crazy way to design your game, right?
Yeah.
Is we need to make this strong and then this strong so that they counteract each other. What? Why? It's bizarre. I
Yeah.
seriously do wish that we had no dupes in Splatoon 2 though. Because again, it's the difference between getting missiled once and having to wait for 8 seconds and dodging to the left and being like, "All right, now we can go back in." And then having it happen again. As soon as the enemy team is now even more ready to engage on your ass. And then pop armor, and then all of a sudden you're just completely overwhelmed on the plat of Anchovy, and the tower's starting to completely run you over, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
times have you
No.
experienced that?
Way too many. Too many to count.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Like,
it was literally the GG special because even if you had armor, right, you had the pushback that missiles would do on the armor itself that would bounce you around. So it literally was like a tower GG special because it would push you away off the tower, kind of like how if you when you be able to shoot off a Kraken off of tower. That's why it's not too viable on tower control anymore.
not to mention, like, the most obnoxious design choice that they ever made in the world was giving missiles a one-shot hitbox, which never should have happened.
Yeah.
Ever, period. That's the most ridiculous thing that they could have thought about when designing that special, but they decided to put it in anyways, and that's... Oh, I have so much beef with missiles.
Put it in, and they also brought it back.
Ugh. But they were able to change it to be at least not overwhelming completely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, 100%.
And yes, that is eventually they got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it didn't ruin the competitive experience for years. 2 years. 2 years we had to deal with people spamming missiles. Like, that is so long to deal with the meta, and that's honestly probably why we saw, I mean, alongside COVID, that's probably why we saw such the decrease that we did, was because missiles just ruined that game. Like, that game at the end of it, like, eventually you could figure it out if you, after playing it for 2 years, you could like have an idea of the rhythm of the meta, and at least it wasn't that far off from what Splatoon normally was, at least Splatoon 2. But it was such a slog.
Yeah, I mean, remember when they announced the missiles came back in the announcement trailer? I don't think I saw a single person not angry or upset or frustrated sharing it on their YouTube clips, their Twitch clips, Twitter. You even like, I'm pretty sure like when players use Instagram, you saw Instagram reels of players being like, "No, missiles are coming back." It was so funny because it was a combined issue, not just for competitive, but even casuals. Because even casuals had the problem with it because anyone could pick up the K shot and blast you with 15 missiles in a single game. And it's like, because, special charge up, why wouldn't you run that on K-Shot to get the missile spam?
And that's honestly why I thought Splatoon 3 was going to literally not have this issue, was because it felt like a lot of the specials were designed in a way that wasn't just press button, go zoom, go die. Like it felt like a lot of the specials were at least better designed in that way, right? Like Crab, it felt like, oh, you have so much more control over it now. It's not like it's just gonna just auto kill you with no effort on the enemy's part.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that that would be better. And to be fair, it is when things are balanced, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't think anyone's arguing about Crab now. Like, yes, was it a disgusting thing to deal with at the beginning of the game? Yes, but it's at least tunable to be in a state that it's fine. And Zuko was also fine, but they decided that they didn't want it to be fine. Apparently,
Yeah.
it's so obnoxious. Like I don't understand it, and that's why, like, that is why I want to see weapon bans continue for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Is because at the end of the day, we don't know what is going to get buffed by Nintendo and left there alone.
Yeah.
And we at least have to be ready to prevent the game from going into that catatonic state that Splatoon 2 was, because it was. Splatoon 2 was in limbo for so long because Nintendo left it to be unsupported. And we're approaching that mark on Splatoon 3. And the same thing is going to happen if we don't do something to put ourselves into a better position for the player base.
Yeah, and I know the biggest concern that I know a lot of players even still have regards to weapon bans is the unbanning, right? Because a lot of times, and Popkin had a great conversation about this on one of his previous podcasts about, if you're going to ban something, you have to be okay with if something does change to unban it, whether that be it's from Nintendo or players discover something new that can be used in the game to counteract what was banned in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I was talking with a couple players for a team I coach, Calamity Forge Neo, about the topic in general of weapon bans. And, some of them were concerned that, like looking at other games, right, that ban certain weapons, they kind of get stuck in this endless loop and log of banning things consistently, always changing it and switching it over. But the one thing I liked to counter with when we would talk about it was we have a lot of amazing individuals that are on our staff for tournaments across all of them, from low level to the top level, and they know what these other games are doing, and they also take a lot of that into consideration. They even look at our game and think of all the possibilities that can come up from Nintendo's sake, from even just player idea's sake, and it's having the will to say we can ban this for X amount of time, but one day there may be a time that we do just unban it, and now, of course, it may not be well received. Some players might think stuff should stay banned, but if the unanimous says that I don't have a problem with this anymore, I'm fine with it, I'm okay with it, it's gonna give the green light to be unbanned, and that's something that I imagine is thought of very thoroughly. Is that okay? We can ban this, but we have to be ready to unban it if there is a really good probable cause to.
I mean, it happened with Kraken, right?
Yeah.
PG recognized that it got fixed, and it's fine. And honestly, the TO Guild obviously put out that survey, right?
Yes. Yep.
That should be probably monthly. And in a perfect world, it would be monthly. And obviously, that's a lot of work. And unfortunately, the people who are willing to do that work are burning out. But I mean, at the very least, it should be every 3 months, right? Every 3 months, take stock. Be like, have things improved, right? Like, do we think that Double Zuka can come back? And just at the very least see what's going on, right? And I'm very curious because the guild is going to come out with some more things soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious to see what other tournaments pick this up, because I legitimately think that more tournaments should pick this up. I really, really had wished that we had been able to get restrictions like normalized in time for low tide.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like I'm on my way out. I'm at the end of the day, I could keep trying to fight this fight, but I think there's better things to do with my time. Uh, but at the end of the day, I really want to see what would happen at a LAN with that restriction.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. 'Cause LAN's different, and for those watching that may not have been to a LAN, things work on a LAN. Things
Yeah.
that you can't fathom working when you play online, or even when you're connected through an Ethernet. Like my biggest example for that is of course Brella and 10. Like they actually work. Stamp even too. I remember when Keen used
Mm-hmm.
it at I think it was the first Gridlock, the New York's LAN. It actually worked, and it was insane to see it actually function properly. And it's like, whoa, that special looks so good. And it'd be so interesting to see a land. Hey, Gridlock 2024. I might have to hit up the people at Metro.
I don't know if Power and Pico would be down for that, to be honest,
Listen,
but you could try.
if Pico will put Zone's Bluefin in the map list for Big Dapple 4, I'm sure anything is possible.
Oh,
That
too
was
funny.
chaos. But I mean, yeah, that seems like an amazing idea to even just test out. What's the worst that happens, right? Is that players say, "Oh, you know what? It felt better," or I didn't like it that much. Like it's not gonna hurt us testing it. And that was one of the questions I did have is like for like what is a future tournament that you'd want to see start picking up these limitations. Obviously, Proving Grounds tested it, and it seemed pretty good. I of course you mentioned a LAN would be a fantastic next run to start implementing some of these limitations. I guess online wise, what may be another tournament that you'd love to see start picking this up?
Cactus. I might sound I might be showing my colors here, but what tournaments even are there online?
I mean, 2 minute account if you really look at it. If we're talking, production wise between Dapple and IPL, looking at Triton, Squid Junction, SOS, Low Ink. Um, I know Minnow Cup still is running around. I see. See, here's the problem, right? The question becomes not even what tournaments are there. It's which ones should even try it. Because I watch low level tournaments when I have the time to. And a lot of times they're during times where I have my own scrims or tournaments going on. And low level's not worried about these things, right? Because they can get away with a
I would
Hydra.
argue that. I would argue that actually. I think that low level is actually where it's more contented.
Really?
In
Okay.
fact, that's low key sneak peek of what the guild found. But
Okay. Okay. I mean, I
like
can see the
even
vision why though. I could
even
see why.
collegiate, like the collegiate team that I coach, like
Hmm.
they're like, yeah, no, double Zuka is like such a problem. Like it's so bad.
Interesting.
The fact that it's bad down there
Yeah.
is like it's crazy
That's insane to think about.
because it's pervasive. Anyways,
Yeah.
uh, I think that Triton Cup, I want to see at least one weekly do it, and I figure the zones weekly would be a fascinating test
Hmm.
to do it on. So I think that Triton Cup should. I mean, like if we have Proving Grounds doing it every month, then maybe not Squid Junction, but like I'd be interested
Yeah.
to see if they picked it up, what it would be like.
Hmm.
I could understand if SOS doesn't want to, right? But I think that like I would hope that one weekly picks it up. That way we could have like comparison points
Yeah.
between different weeklies, between the Proving Grounds and Squid Junction, right? Because those are the two kind of like equivalencies. And I'd want to see Low Ink try it. I know they never will, because I know Brushstrokes, and he's a bit of a I don't want to say reserved, but like he definitely does not want to rock the boat,
And that's fair. I
and that's
can't blame him for
fair.
that.
But I mean, I can imagine Toma and FTIU will, and that's going to be interesting as well to see how if participation picks up, if there's good feedback for them. So I think that like enough tournaments will
Hmm.
that it'll be interesting.
I like that. I think seeing the span across the different skill levels throughout our competitive scene, because theoretically, to me, my personal opinion is that it breaks into four levels, right? Low level,
Yeah.
mid level, top level, and high level, then top level.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really, it'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to view and um see what we see from these different levels. How do they feel about it? How is it does it affect them how much does it affect them, right? Obviously it will affect in some way. It's just how. And what are their something I like to think about is what are their weapon choices going to switch to, right? Because
Right.
each level is going to think of different things that they can do that's going to be able to switch up weapons that they want to pick. Low level is going to have different picks, whether that's based on more fun ideals or more competitively viable deals. Same goes with mid level and even high level. There are going to be some weapon choices that they're going to want to select and they're going to want to choose that are going to whether be more comfortable for them or they feel they're finally get an opportunity to shine because like, hey, this is good, this weapon is good, this kit is not half bad, but I haven't been able to use it all this time because Double Zuka takes over, and if we want a win condition, it's gonna be Double Zuka because it's broken and it works.
Now, in an ideal world, what I would really want to see is specifically a Splatland circuit. And this is something that I really have only talked about in private circles. I haven't really thrown
Mm-hmm.
this idea out there, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have a series of online tournaments, have a series of LAN tournaments, and then at the end of the year, whenever we decide that is, like, have the players play in person somewhere really cool and high production value, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm-hmm.
that would be there would be so much that goes into that. Although, thinking about the numbers now, we might be able to get away with it.
Listen, I've been talking. This is the topic I talked about when I interviewed the head TOs for the three locals that took place at the same time:
Mm,
Sunset Surge, Sea Battle, and New Inkland. And I remember even like tossing it up to Pepe like way before too. And I still need to talk to a Metro Inc. about it at some point. But I'd love to have, and this is like, of course, this is a project that would take a while to get made, but
it would take a year. It would take a year to actually happen.
yeah, probably. So obviously, like these locals are in different states, different locations, and basically my idea was, what if we took the top teams that win, or top two teams, right, first, second place that win the locals at whatever given point, right? Maybe it's their most
Mm-hmm.
recent one, and have them like battle like a state versus state, right? Like IPL put on that one time online, but my thought was we could do it online. What if at some point we get to a point where we could have it in person?
Right.
Everyone travel down, whether obviously like it could be a side event at like my idea was Loted City's kind of the center of the US for the most part, if you give or take a couple states, but that's where most players from different states in general come down and come together to compete in Splatoon. And like, could you imagine the side event of that attraction of just state versus state at a LAN, right? And like, yeah, doing it online would be cool, but I feel like in person would just be so much better. But that's just me blabbing about it.
I
um,
know. Like, what I would really like to see is and I don't know for coming back to Big House, but at Big House, if instead of like the normal tournament, it's just like the top 8 teams from the circuit come and play at Big House, and it's specifically like a spectator event, right? And,
yes.
and we go specifically on spectator, and we do like big production value. I wonder if that would actually be more cost effective to do. It would just be an issue of getting the players there. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't that be so cool?
Yes. Yes. Just that the idea of just those two ideas is just it would be amazing to see. And another like knockoff of like that state for state I have is like, obviously like sometimes you can't control like timing and everything, right? There's gonna be times where like the middle of July could work for players in New York, right? Because that's when we're having
Yeah.
gridlock, but that might not work for players who attended Sunset Surge in Arizona. So like, a knockoff idea I had was like, oh, what if you took like you go everyone at a major, you find out which players from what states are coming down, and whatever states have 4 players could team up and have that state versus state in a sense, and that's why I
Dude,
would call it a side event because obviously they never played each other before, but still.
I've never solved this, but I've always wanted to try and figure out a crew battle format for Splatoon. And I
Oh,
just don't know how it would work. You know what I mean?
I think
Like,
so.
because do you know what crew battles are in Smash?
Um, I'm gonna say yes, but explain for chat. Yeah, explain for
My
chat.
gamer is not cultured. My gamer's not cultured.
I'm
Crew
uncultured.
battle. You've got 20 stocks.
Okay.
Oh, I'm specifically talking melee here. You've got 20 stocks, right?
Yeah.
So, first player from one crew goes up against the first player from the second crew. If let's say a second crew gets knocked out and the player from the first crew has 2 remaining, the second crew sends up another player, and the first crew has to keep on that first player. And the
Oh,
second crew can pick which one that comes up, but
yes.
the next match that they have, the player from the first crew has to keep their old stock count, right?
Yes.
So he
I
has
know
to
what
do
you're talking
twice.
about. I just didn't know it
Hmm.
was called Crewball. That's right. And they pretty much stay on that life. So
Yeah,
they're trying to see if they can effectively go through as many players as they can on that life.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, how would that work?
Right? That's
Oh,
if there's one thing that I never actually did in Splatoon, it's successfully run a crew battle, quote unquote TM. But like,
yeah.
how would you even do it in Splatoon, right? Because it's not a one-on-one game. Like, how would that actually work? There would be way too many ways to do that. But
Yeah.
I figure maybe we could figure it out. But the reason I talk about all this is because right now we don't have anything for top level.
Yeah.
Like maybe Sendow's tournaments once every season that Sendow has, which
Yeah.
is arbitrary. But it's like there's nothing super consistent. There's nothing with good production value. I mean, the Ink TV is not coming back,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And luckily there's enough knowledge that was passed on to make that happen again, but like it's a lot of work, and at the end of the day it's people have to really want to do it, and I don't think that there's those people anymore, right?
Yeah. No, I
Because
agree.
that would be the perfect place to test the weapon restrictions.
Yeah. And
Without that, like, how do we properly gauge
yeah.
how the game will look at the highest level with restrictions? Like right now we can't.
Yeah. We're just stuck at a standstill where like the closest we have is the besides like you mentioned the Sendo Q finals is the very rare occasional top level player. I mean the early closest we have was Kio's tournament, right, that he put on, and that had a lot of top player interest, but those aren't that's a one-off tournament, right? And it's not something like Ink TV was. Ink TV was something unique. It was something special, and it had pinned the top teams the scene can provide against each other consistently within a couple a time span that we could see a lot of things get put into place, a lot of things shift around, and it just had a lot of eyes on it too.
I know.
And
Dude, can we talk about Ink TV for a second? Like, I don't
absolutely.
know, being in the throes of that, like I was busy with so much crap, and I feel like I really couldn't enjoy it.
Mhm.
But that period of time was so good for Splatoon, man.
Yeah.
Like that was the time to really be in it.
Yeah, it was magic. It was magical, if you will, because it was incredible to watch. I mean, the hype around so many of those sets. because it was top level teams that would always go against each other in tournaments, and that would always be like neck and neck. Obviously, it wasn't even for a while, neck and neck besides Starburst, right, at the time, because Starburst still reigned supreme.
Oh no,
And
Jackpot won.
no, I mean, before Ink TV started, right? Like
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
was, it was who's gonna be the one that takes second place, right? And that's how it always was until those events, until Ink TV starts, and
Yeah.
Jackpot loses to, I think it was AR first, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, I think
Jackpot
so.
takes the crown, and it's like, now hold on a minute, we are seeing a shift in the top level that we haven't seen in ages.
It was a true change of the guard, yeah.
It literally was, you had to be there. It was a had to be there moment in
It
time.
was. It really, really was, man.
Like, it just,
Oh,
thinking about it, it's like this was a thing that happened. And you, like, it's hard to even describe the hype that was there about it, and that's what makes you want to pull up, like, oh yeah, you watch this whole Ink TV series. Like, I can't even explain it, just watch it, because it was monumental in the competitive scene. It was a time where, meta kind of sucked, but it wasn't so terrible. You had so much engagement from players getting inspired by seeing their favorite teams from at different regions compete at the top, and you couldn't help but just stay silent, watch your screen, and hear those commentators say words that you never thought would be said for more months and years to come. It was insane.
that it was truly, truly an incredible, just an incredible time to be a Splatoon fan because it. And you know what's crazy? Everything is still up on the InkTV YouTube channel, and like all of these VODs have like 1K or sitting around like 1.5K views, except for AR versus Starburst match 5, which was 9 point, which is sitting at like 10,000 views, and it's
Oh
like,
my god.
dude, like this could be so much bigger if we just kept putting this effort into it and it didn't fall every time that we tried to prop it up.
Yeah. Yep. It's painful, and it sucks knowing that we were at that point, and we didn't have the opportunity to push it even higher. And I don't know, I'm someone who likes to think very optimistic when I can, because
Yeah.
I love this game. I try to put in effort wherever I can, and sometimes I do too much at once, and I end up falling short and just falling down everywhere. But if it's one thing I learned, even just through my own actions, it's that with how much that I try to do on at once, and there are points where I go from doing everything to straight up nothing, cold stone, cold turkey. There's a way to build back up, whether that be, for my case, it's whether I find another commentating opportunity, whether I find a tournament to compete in, whether I, make another guide for players to follow to help themselves get more in tuned into competitive, whatever it might be. There's a way to build back up. And I like to think that while right now we might not have the opportunity to, bring back what was that Ink TV Resurgence League, there will be a point where there might be players that right now maybe are running their own smaller events that will eventually group together to make something similar, if not maybe better. That's a lot to say, but still,
Mm-hmm.
of the Resurgence League, it just takes those players that have the want, of course, have the time, because mind you, again, this is all players doing it out of the kindness of their hearts and not being paid to do it, um, and put on a spectacular.
Now my brain is now I'm thinking about this again, and I don't want to think about this because I want to be done with this game.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
but I'm
Magic.
thinking about the numbers. If we just had a pay to enter league, it would work. It would work. It would work. It would work. If each player just decided, hey, we're just gonna like we just need $50, just $50 a player, and I know that players can do it, and that would be such a good way to convince top level.
Hmm.
But nobody wants to just fucking bite the bullet and put a pay to enter league when it would literally be the easiest thing in the world to actually start something in
Yeah.
this scene.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like it would spark a lot. I think what it is okay, I'm brainstorming, right? This is brainstorming off of that idea.
yeah.
Um start small, right? Like I'm thinking Smash, right? When players would come to those like each other's houses and play in those
Yeah.
mini events, what are they putting in? They started off with like $5 they got from a paycheck. $5 that could get them like half, back then like a full deck of gas. Um, and it grew from there. That $5 turned to 10, 15, 20, 30, 50. At some points when it comes even larger, maybe even 100, right? Now I'm not saying, well, I don't even think Smash gets to 100 anymore at that point because that's just insane. But who knows, right? But it's the potential can be there. And considering like the prize pools for our events are getting larger for majors, I mean, like you said, like Low City potentially is running upwards towards 3,000. Gridlock has a starting prize pool of $1,000. Like we're getting prize pools for events that are a lot larger than it would have been a year ago from now, or a year ago in the past.
Cactus, I want to do some math.
Let's do math. I was bad at math, but
That's okay.
we can do math.
What how many teams are usually in DivX of Ludi? 12, right?
Roughly 12, right? Yeah.
So what's 12 times 50? Well, what's 12 times 4 times 50?
$2,400.
That's just to start. That's a starting point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every top player just said, all right, here's 50. We're going to let you do what you need to do with that money. I mean, even if we just have half of that go back to players as a prize pool, and half of that go towards, all right, we're gonna fund at least a part-time level of production, and like we'll try and like get some sponsorship agreements. We'll try and use that money to make some merch to make more money, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much that can be done here, right? And I feel like merch is something that we want to tap into at Splatlands but haven't gotten the chance to, right? But let's just say like, oh, hey teams, if you give us your logo and we make shirts and we ship it out to people, we can make money off of that, and that will help us make everything bigger in the long run.
Yeah.
Like that's how you run a business. Like,
Yeah.
but nobody has that sense, right?
Yeah.
It is also there is also the other side of the coin though, right? Is that should we be incentivizing things with that much money? And this is kind of the thing that I want to end off with. This is kind of the topics that I had at the end of Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
Um, this is a grassroots scene. Always has been.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that it would be kept that way. That doesn't mean that I think that there's a balance to strike here, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we shouldn't grow. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't push to be at least a little bit better on the top end, to have more moments like we had with Ink TV, to have more moments like we did at Worlds, to have these rivalries that pop up at LANs. Right? Those are good things. They create intrigue and community around it. But do we have to completely switch the lever and try and become esports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of something that I've been like alluding to in some of my conversations recently.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where it's like esports is cutthroat. Esports is bent
Yeah.
on making money. Esports is a business, right?
Yeah.
And will it take some business sense to get Splatoon to a point where it's at least interesting and engaging again and worth it for players at the top level. Like, yeah, because we live in a society. Um, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I said, Splatoon will be fine if the players keep playing. It doesn't mean that things can't get bigger. It doesn't mean that we can't crowdfund,
Hmm.
right? Because like think about like every local organization that like you had like at your school growing up,
Hmm.
right? How many fundraisers did they do? Right? There was like
Yeah.
a
No.
fundraiser
Yeah.
every month, right?
Yeah. And it was always something different
Yeah.
to keep it
Like,
engaging.
and that's how these local community based grassroots organizations keep themselves afloat. Why can't people like Dapple, people like IPL, people like Splatlands do the same things, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it creates more value and more interest and and more back and forth between community members and community leaders, right? Like having shirts that we could give to the community would be so much fun. It would make it more interesting. It would make it more engaging. It would be like, oh yeah, I'm a Splatoon competitive player. Here's my shirt that like I can sport around that like only like a few people will get ever, right? But I can be proud of that, and it's something that gives back to the community as well as is something for me to be more engaging and to think about it more often and be proud of that. You know what I mean? It's this back and forth that we don't have right now that would really be the lifeblood of pushing the scene to a better place.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It all starts somewhere, right? All it takes is one person, one group of people to take an idea like this and run it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I always like to think what's like what's something small to get the ball rolling, because that's how you cause the snowball effect. It takes one little thing. Like maybe like with obviously shirts would be fantastic. It's like maybe even at some point, you know, jerseys, right? Think of sports.
Yeah.
They have jerseys for teams and people rep the players. But what if you started pins, stickers, maybe even like
Mm-hmm.
mugs, right? imagine,
Mugs. I
imagine
would
get your
buy a competitive Splatoon mug.
right.
Give me a
Imagine
jackpot mug, dude.
like that would be incredible, and that's a small start that it just takes someone with just a little bit extra free time that they might have, and the willingness, and obviously a little bit of the business knowledge behind it to get things rolling, to get that started and get the engagement. And it's like, hey, buy a mug for your favorite team. That those funds can get put, split into making more for of those mugs, and then also pushing towards like a price pool or
Mm-hmm.
production, you name it. And I know it's doable, and we might not be there like at the moment, right? But I know it can be done, and it just takes the right time to find out when and how. Obviously, I mean, well, the how for the most part, it's like, oh, you just put it on a mug, like, you know what I mean. Start the
Yeah.
business aspect of it, right? Because that's the part that it's always the hardest part.
And I think the time is now, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
lanes are getting bigger than they ever have. I mean, that would be the perfect place to do something like that, you know? Uh, but I know that that person is not going to be me,
Hmm.
and I am okay with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I I feel like for a long time, and this is something that I really do not talk about often,
Hmm.
but I had a family member pass away when I first got into competitive Splatoon. It
Hmm.
was right at the beginning of 2017, and like I had so much going on in my world at that point
Hmm.
that I needed some escape,
Yeah.
some community to be a part of, and Splatoon was that for me. And it turned me into the person that I am today. Like there's so much that I have to be thankful for, so many friendships, and uh, it helped me be more empathetic. It helped me grow skills that were important. Like I'm so much more comfortable in front of audiences and cameras now, and that's because I talked over my gameplay on Twitch.tv in 2018 just because I wanted to. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just small things like that, right? And because of the organizers and everything, like I wanted to give back in some way, to guide this community in a direction that would be beneficial for it, that I felt I could make good decisions for this community. And so I wanted to try and achieve that. And I feel like now I have, I don't want to say like done my fair share, but like that's basically how I feel. Is like I've done what I needed to do
Yeah.
to truly give back to that, and to continue on this awesome community that helped me when I needed it and will help others when they need it.
Yeah. I mean, from the outside perspective, for someone who's only came into the scene, the competitive scene of things, pretty much like the start or a year in to when COVID hit, like being able to see how who the figures are in the community, right? Coming from pretty much the ground up, not knowing a single thing, to you know being somebody that's in the community in almost every step possible, minus production. I'll get there eventually. I'm not there yet. Eventually, but I can say from seeing you at almost every major I've been to even just casually having talks with you on social media or in messages, like you've done so much for the community. And I see it, and just to see, like, even like whenever your name's brought up, like the O sevens that pop up in chats whenever you're
Yeah,
just
that was
guys,
funny.
it's like you left such an impact, and I feel like that just such a heartwarming feeling, and I want, like, just me personally to say thank you to you, because I've seen it, other players seen it. You've done so much, and it shows. And not only have you changed things for the better, but you've left such a mark and imprint on so many players and on so many events that, like, when you announced that you'd be stepping away from just the comp scene, which again, do not blame you for at all. um it's truly just seeing like the overwhelming support of players that support your decision, and we're gonna miss you, and just knew who you were and the things you've done. It's just
Mhm.
you're going out in such a blaze of glory, and like I want you to know from just like outside perspective from someone else that, like, you did do it. You did do what you wanted to do, what you've been aiming to accomplish. And I mean, even like, just I couldn't be more than happy to, of course, have you on this episode, but just know you in general and see the things you've put through, and the things that you've done, and even get lessons from you as well. I mean, I'll never forget when you coached me that one time when you had that like Metafy
Yeah,
giveaway, and like I like confused you with my weird crab check when like Splash was meta.
that was fun. That
Like,
was fun.
it was beautiful, and it was amazing, and like it's those moments that I cherish with, like, with anyone really, just because that
Right.
I see those people as that do something for me, whether that be in my regular life or just for competitive or you name it, that just did something that changed the way something worked, something was looked at. It's just, thank you.
No, thank you. Because I mean, and that's what I love about this scene, right? Is that we can just have conversations as people, and like we don't have to play any weird politics. We don't have to, like, nobody's coming up to me and being like, I'm your biggest fan, man." Like,
Sign my
no, I
forehead,
just this is
Magic.
what I want in my life. Please. Please never do that.
Well, can I have you sign my arm at Low Tide City?
No. No,
No,
I
it
will
was worth
not
a
do that.
shot. It was worth a shot.
Ugh. Uh, but yeah, no. thank you for always listening to me yap and just being a good dude as well. You know, you're doing all the podcast things, you're doing the content, you're competing and bringing the energy to lands, and like that also doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, I won't. I'll try not to hurt the chairs at Low Tide City this
Please
time.
don't hurt the chairs, dude. We're gonna be in the ballroom with actually do hurt the chairs.
What?
I want Smash to see it.
Oh, say less. Listen, that's all you had to say. You just had to give me that okay. Chairs will go flying. You have my word.
Handshake. Oh god.
Virtual handshake. You got it. Oh man.
Too fucking funny. But yeah, no. That I guess that brings me to the last part that I want to like cover as a conclusion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so in the absence of Splatoon, what's gonna happen to me, right?
Yes.
I've been posting a little bit on Blue Sky, and I know I've posted about it on Twitter before, but like, I probably do want to, if I stay on the internet at all, it's either going to be in game dev or as just a community organizer, and probably I don't want to say like a political activist, but like something along those lines, just because like I feel like that's so much more important just in my life, in the world in general right now.
Yeah.
Like that's probably where I'll end up, right? Obviously I just recently, within the past few months, met a wonderful girl, and we're going vegan together. Like I Wednesday was my first day being vegan.
Oh, how was it?
I'm enjoying it so far. Like I think my body's reacting in very interesting ways, but I don't want to get into that here because it's just a little bit gross.
As someone who has a health restriction, I can't eat anything with gluten.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like it crosses between with vegan a little bit, because a lot of gluten-free products you will find majority of the time are also vegan. But
Right.
I used to date a wonderful woman who was hardcore vegan, like to the extreme, and it's so interesting to see like different levels of like there are for vegan products. Obviously not to get too much into it, but like it's crazy to see like it could say vegan, but did you know it also still has egg in it? It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like, do you understand the definition?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's like most stuff like I can't have anyways because most of it has just like processed sugar.
Yeah.
And processed sugar uses like bone marrow
Yeah.
to whiten the sugar.
Yeah. It's
crazy.
Yeah, it's the little things like that like you don't realize until you actually do read the ingredients.
And because of that, like I want to start like growing my own food here in my like 500 square foot apartment. I want to try.
Yeah.
Right? I bought a bag of fucking soil that's sitting in my closet right now, and I repotted by one plant that I have, and I have seeds that I want to plant, and I'm supposed to this weekend.
That's
We'll see when I
awesome.
get around to it.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that. Like there's a lot that I want to do that I felt like I haven't been able to just because of how involved I've been in this scene.
Yeah.
Right? That I mean, it was just time for me to take a step back and focus on these other things. I want to try and get a post out on Twitter before I delete my Twitter, because I'm going to delete my fucking Twitter because that place is a cesspool.
You're not wrong.
That we shouldn't be on as a community in the first place anyways. That is going to trash because Elon Musk is a big baby boy, and at the end of the day, like, it's just not healthy at all for my mental. So like, I don't know. I really just need to get off of that app.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll delete the TikTok. I'm debating it. I might like. Who knows? Because like it's going down soon anyways. So like
Yeah.
I might as well just stay on it.
Yeah. Enjoy it while it
was
lasts.
Heavily debating deleting it, and maybe I still will, but I'm not sure. Or maybe I'll like turn it into a different account, or maybe that's where I'll post my game dev stuff. Right? I'm gonna stay on Blue Sky, but like I'm not gonna be on Twitter anymore. I'm probably gonna be leaving like most Discords. Like I'm gonna be leaving this Discord. I'm sorry, but
It's okay.
like
It's okay. I won't be hurt.
I'm gonna be like
Yeah.
the only things that I will really be doing in Splatoon is gonna be coaching Drexel until they don't want me anymore. In which case, then I'll just probably back all the way out. Like I, it's not that I have fallen out of love with the game
Hmm.
because I can still appreciate it because I still enjoy doing commentary and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot more important things that I need to do right now, as well as things that are just more important, like morally for me to do right now, that I want to focus on and that need my attention.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the state of things. If people really want to still follow me and see me like posting random stuff, like follow me on Blue Sky, right? And I'll probably be doing a lot of like game dev stuff there, as well as just posting about normal life and stuff. But I mean, I will probably rarely post about Splatoon from here on out.
Yeah, and validly so. I mean, you deserve the rest. You've put
Yeah.
so much effort in, and I mean, we cannot thank you enough for what you've done. And I'm really happy for you to hear that you have such a solid a life plan ahead of you for the next foreseeable future. I mean, that's incredible. That's awesome. I mean, it's great
Yeah.
to hear. And it's not a bad thing. And you know what? I feel like it's a good thing to be able to take a step away from something that you were so invested in for so long. You know,
Right.
like sometimes it's good to take that break. You know, Splatoon is, I'm sure it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, Splatoon
Right.
4, before you know it's gonna be probably knocking on our doorstep.
Like I said, it's always gonna be here,
Yeah.
right? Like the lands will carry on without me. Like we've got people who are training now. We got Brush and Seekant who are gonna be very solid TOs, and like I know that these these people are solid. These players will be fine, and I need to focus on trying to make the world a better place so that I can play video games without having to worry about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And no one says you can't come back. Okay, maybe don't come back to the competitive side. It's, maybe watch, but for your own good, stay away from the
Uh,
competitive.
no, I
Uh,
mean, probably the ways that I'll step back in is either content or commentary,
hmm
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe,
But that would
yeah,
be years down the line.
yeah. If this podcast still goes on, I'd love to host your welcome back party.
Let's, you know what? If you're still hosting this by the time that I decide to come back, like, I will do that, no questions asked.
Let's go. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's yeah, like we talked about, Splatoon's gonna be here to stay for so long, and you know, you've done so much and left such a great impression that things are gonna be moving forward in such a great way with the guidance that you give in so many of these upcoming TOs and production staff, that it's in good hands. And I feel confident in that, knowing that you helped guide a lot of them, because you helped put together so many fantastic events, alongside Siren and so many other TOs like Toasty and so on and so forth, that it's it's gonna suck not seeing you at events, but knowing like your spirit is there with all that you have done is incredible. And I could be happy to, of course, have you on for today. And yeah, obviously seeing you in literally like a week from now, which is crazy to
Yeah.
think about.
Holy shit.
Because I haven't even started one single prep for my trip. So
Dude,
that's
fun fact. We still have to seed the tournament.
no,
We
man.
have the schedule. We have
Okay,
the schedule.
that's
We
good.
just need to make the graphic. It's there. It exists. We understand it, and it is good. But like, we need to make the commentary schedule. We need to make the seed. We need to make the group schedule. There's gonna be a lot happening this week.
That's fair. I DM Brush about about the commentary thingy thing. I won't say too much on that, but yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure you know, but I'll probably send you the image because it was really funny.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's gonna be awesome. That's cool. So that should help a little bit. You'll know what I mean when I send it. But um, yeah, I mean, well, I mean, with that being said, then Magic, thank you for coming on, man. Like
Thank you
seriously,
for having me.
it's been a pleasure. I love just being able to give you, of course, the time and the space and the platform to, say more than what you could have on the Proving Ground stream.
Yeah,
Um,
because
and
I
yeah,
had to commentate over the
yeah, just a
games.
little bit, right? Just show what the players are there to watch.
Oh
Um,
my god.
but it's from I remember when we had the interview for when the guidelines came out, and even then that was amazing. I loved your enthusiasm for that. I always love just being able to talk to you about so much. So as we start to round things off, Magic, who would you like to shout out? Could be yourself, could be anyone. The
I'm
floor is
gonna
all
shout out.
yours.
I'm gonna shout out MomoCon, which is gonna be streaming a $1,000 prize pool tournament, uh, the last weekend of May, when there's only 4 teams signed up. If you want a free $1,000, go sign up for MomoCon right now. Second, I'm gonna shout out Siren, obviously, and everything to do where she's been doing with LTC, and she has been literally the reason that I've been able to get through this last tournament. I want to shout out Kbot, who's been my OG TO mentor, who's a commentary mentor, and who's been a great friend to me for a long ass time. Um, I want to shout out Ray's my coach, because he is truly the goat, one of the top minds of the game, and I know he's gonna hate me saying that. Um, I want to shout out to the Drexel kiddos, because they are so much fun and they do great stuff, and they've been improving really, really well. And I think that they could be really solid mid-level players, and if not, go even further than that with just this squad right now. They're really special, and they deserve the world. Um, Shout outs to my mom for birthing me.
Shout out Mama Magic.
Shout outs to Vitamin C, Hailstorm, Tidal Wave again, Muso, and ITAP and Sub Power Up. All the teams that I've been on, because it has been a wild fucking ride, and I appreciate everyone.
Amazing. I love it. Love the shout outs. Love it all. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, squids and octolings, that was Magic 8 Ball, and this was your episode 8 of the Cactus Patch. Thank you all so
Oh my
much
god.
for coming on out and viewing this episode. We appreciate all of you, and tune in next time for the next episode with whoever and whatever the topic may be. Goodbye.
Bro, I didn't